Outside the Box Reviews, we are taking a look at the Mezco Cinema Fear Wave 2 Nancy Thompson figure. This has always been one of the oddballs of the Cinema Fear line for a couple different reasons. One, it's not a horror villain, though we do see him present here. It's one of the two victims we got in the Cinema Fear line, and it's not really much of an action figure. It's more of a static statue piece. And what we have is the iconic depiction of Nancy in the bathtub from the original A Nightmare on Elm Street. There we have the likeness of Heather Langenkamp sleeping against a little pillow there. The likeness isn't too bad depending on the angle you look at it. Sometimes her nose looks a little off, but for the most part I think it's a pretty decent sculpt. There weren't a whole lot of human face likenesses done in the Cinema Fear line, so it is interesting to see them pull one off. The paint on here isn't great. There's some kind of slop around the hairline, but there is some nice shading in the hair itself, and the rest of the details seem to be alright. There is some shading also there on the blue pillow. On the multiple sides, we do have the tile wall. It's kind of sculpted in a weird way where you just see bits and pieces of what would have been a full wall in the film. We have all the little bathroom pieces, like the soap caddy there on the one wall, the little fish ornamentation, the faucet itself, and whatever that is, some kind of lotion and a sponge. But for being just kind of a weird static piece, it's pretty well done. It looks decent. We have the gold brass trim here around the edge of the tub. The other sides of the tub are really dull. They're just pure white for the actual basin itself. And these tile pieces are actually separate in the box, so you could actually take these off. It'll leave some holes in the side of the tub itself. But if you didn't want the added pieces, you could actually have those removed. And I think the detail they've incorporated in the actual Nancy figure is really impressive, just for the fact that it's kind of a tricky thing to do in this format. It's more or less a nude character, but of course you want to obscure it so that you could sell it at mass retail. So there's a bubble effect on here where it's translucent but not completely transparent, but they did actually go to the trouble of adding in a body underneath. So you can actually see the pink flesh tones there. We have her knees coming up above the surface, and then we have her feet down there. I've seen people who have actually disassembled this, and I believe there are just different layers. The bubble layer sits on top, and then the different underbody pieces go down there. It looks really weird from what I remember. But they definitely capture a good effect of a woman laying in a bathtub being obscured by the bubbles. And then last but not least, we have the Freddy Krueger arm and glove coming up here. So we got a little bit of the sweater there, the iconic red sweater with some red shading in it. And the glove is pretty nicely done. It looks like this was taken straight off of the exact same mold they used for the Nightmare on Elm Street Part 1 Freddy, which was also in this wave, so it makes complete sense that they just reused the part. You can see the skin tone underneath there, the silver blades, the kind of coppery back to it. Not a bad job there. For articulation, Freddy's hand is on a ball joint here, so we'll go up and down as well as rotate. Really, I think you're just going to want to have it in various stages of up or down, depending on how you want him stalking Nancy. And that's it. No more articulation. For a size comparison, here it is next to Mezco's Part 1 Freddy from the same wave, and it's definitely in scale because they use the same hand, but outside of it just sitting next to other things on your shelf, I can't really see you trying to pose other Freddys or anything around this to make any kind of scene. This is probably one of the strangest entries in the Mezco Cinema Fear line. They put out some figures in this line that had very limited articulation, but they never put anything else out in the main line that was supposed to be such a statue of a piece. The weird part is they had a separate line that did have a lot of things like this. I believe it was called the Screen Grabbers line, and it was also under the Cinema Fear banner. They were basically smaller scale statues of iconic scenes from different horror movies. While it's kind of cool to get Nancy, since she is such a big character in the Nightmare on Elm Street saga, and get her in plastic here, I'll admit the only reason I picked this figure up was because I realized it was the only Cinema Fear 7-inch scale figure I was missing. So this piece gets a slight not recommend. There's nothing horrible about it. I'm just not overly intrigued by anything this gives us. It's a cool scene, but I'd almost rather just see a picture of it than have it in plastic form. Make sure you follow me on Instagram, username Outside the Box Reviews. Also check me out on Facebook, link below. And until next time, this has been our Outside the Box Reviews. Whatever you do, don't fall asleep.